morning began quietly at the Texas runway, with clear skies and routine flight checks. A NASA research aircraft prepared for landing after completing what seemed like a normal mission. Inside the cockpit, instruments glowed steadily as the pilots began their final descent. Air traffic control cleared the runway, unaware of the problem developing beneath the plane. Moments later, warning lights flashed, signaling the landing gear had failed to deploy. The pilots quickly confirmed the issue, realizing the wheels were not locking into position. Years of training took over as panic was replaced by calm, disciplined decision-making. The crew informed air traffic control, triggering an immediate emergency response. Fire crews raced toward the runway, foam trucks lining both sides in silent readiness. Inside the cabin, passengers sensed something was wrong, though no one spoke aloud. The pilots reviewed emergency checklists, step by step, knowing every second mattered. Fuel levels were calculated carefully to reduce fire risk during the unavoidable landing. Engineers on the ground listened closely, offering guidance through open radio channels. The aircraft circled the airport, buying time while crews prepared for the worst outcome. From below, spectators watched as the plane descended again. Lower than before, cameras began recording, capturing what would soon spread across the internet. The pilots aligned the aircraft perfectly, aiming for the longest stretch of runway. Wind speed, angle, and weight were recalculated one final time before descent. Silence filled the cockpit as the runway rushed closer beneath the aircraft. The nose stayed level as the belly of the plane met concrete instead of wheels. Sparks exploded from beneath the fuselage, streaking across the runway in bright arcs. A burst of flames followed as metal scraped violently against hardened pavement. Thick smoke rose instantly, partially obscuring the aircraft from ground crews. Despite the chaos, the plane remained steady, sliding forward under full control. Firefighters moved instantly, spraying foam to contain the growing flames. The aircraft slowed gradually, its momentum finally giving way to friction. Inside the cabin, seatbelts strained as the plane came closer to a complete stop. Emergency alarms echoed through the aircraft, mixing with the roar of fire engines. When the plane finally halted, the flames were already being pushed back. Fire crews surrounded the aircraft, sealing it inside a protective foam barrier. Pilots shut down the engines, cutting fuel flow before evacuation could begin. A tense pause followed as teams confirmed the fire was fully under control. Emergency exits were opened carefully, ensuring no sparks remained nearby. Passengers were guided out, one by one, into the waiting arms of responders. Faces showed shock, relief, and disbelief at how close disaster had come. Medics checked everyone immediately, finding no serious injuries on board. The aircraft sat scarred and smoking, its underside heavily damaged. News helicopters circled overhead, broadcasting the dramatic scene live. Within hours, footage flooded social media, captivating viewers worldwide. Experts praised the pilots for textbook execution under extreme pressure. Investigators arrived to determine why the landing gear had failed. Early signs pointed to a mechanical malfunction deep within the system. NASA released a statement commending the crew's professionalism. Aviation analysts highlighted how training prevented a fatal outcome. The runway remained closed as debris was cleared and safety checks began. For many viewers, the video became a reminder of aviation's hidden risks. For pilots, it became a lesson in preparation and disciplined response. The crew later described the landing as intense, but controlled. They emphasized trust and training over fear in critical moments. Behind the headlines, months of investigation quietly continued. Engineers examined scorched metal and damaged components carefully. Each mark told a story of friction, heat, and survival. Simulations recreated the failure to prevent future incidents. Lessons learned would influence safety protocols across agencies. The damaged aircraft was eventually towed away for detailed inspection. Its survival became a symbol of engineering resilience. Online comments shifted from shock to admiration for the crew. Many viewers admitted they had never seen a belly landing before. Aviation educators began using the footage in training programs. The event sparked renewed interest in emergency aviation procedures. Despite the danger, the outcome remained remarkably positive. No lives were lost, and no serious injuries were reported. The pilots later reunited with the rescue crews who saved the day. Their shared experience formed a bond forged under pressure. What began as a routine mission became a global headline. The runway returned to normal operations days later, Yet the memory of that landing lingered for those who witnessed it. For NASA, safety reviews intensified across similar aircraft models. Engineers double-checked systems once taken for granted. The story spread beyond aviation circles into mainstream media. It reminded the public that preparation often saves lives. Every checklist, every drill, and every simulation proved its worth. The pilots' calm voices contrasted sharply with the violent landing. Their composure became the defining feature of the event. Viewers replayed the footage, noticing new details each time. Flames, sparks, and smoke painted a dramatic visual narrative. Yet behind it all was disciplined, not luck. The aircraft's design absorbed impact exactly as intended. Engineers called it a real-world stress test. The success reinforced confidence in modern aviation safety. Survivors later described the silence just before impact. That moment became etched into their memories forever. Some said it felt unreal, like time slowed down. The evacuation unfolded faster than anyone expected. Training on both sides proved crucial to survival. The incident became a case study worldwide. Aviation forums debated technical details late into the night. Mechanics discussed redundancy and system failure prevention. Pilots praised clear communication with air traffic control. Fire crews received recognition for their rapid response. Each role played a part in the safe outcome. The event showed how teamwork saves lives. From cockpit to runway, coordination mattered. It was not one hero, but many. The footage will be studied for years to come. Safety improvements already began taking shape. The Scud plane became a powerful visual reminder. Sometimes survival depends on preparation, not chance. This landing rewrote what many thought was possible, and it proved that calm decisions can overcome chaos. In the days following the landing, investigators reconstructed every second of the flight. Data from the black box revealed stable control even as systems failed beneath the plane. Engineers focused on the landing gear mechanism, searching for the precise failure point. Each component was cataloged, photographed, and tested under controlled conditions. Early theories ranged from hydraulic loss to electronic signal interruption. The pilots were interviewed carefully, recalling each decision made in the cockpit. Their memories aligned closely with recorded data, confirming disciplined execution. Experts noted how quickly the crew identified the malfunction without hesitation. Communication logs showed clear, concise language between cockpit and control tower. There was no confusion, only calm exchanges despite the rising danger. Fire crews reviewed their response times, measuring seconds down to decimals. Their arrival speed exceeded expectations, contributing to the successful outcome. Training exercises mirrored the real event almost perfectly. Foam coverage patterns were analyzed for effectiveness during the fire suppression. Investigators praised coordination between aviation and emergency services. Meanwhile, public fascination with the footage continued to grow online. Millions replayed the moment sparks first touched the runway. Comment sections filled with shock, curiosity, and admiration. Aviation professionals stepped in to explain what viewers were seeing. They broke down why the plane did not flip or veer off course. Weight distribution and precise alignment made the difference. The aircraft's reinforced underside absorbed tremendous stress. Designers had anticipated scenarios few people ever witnessed. That foresight now stood proven in dramatic fashion. News outlets shifted focus from spectacle to safety lessons. Articles highlighted how rare such landings actually are. Statistics showed modern aviation remains among the safest transport modes. Still, the emotional impact of the visuals stayed strong. Passengers later shared how instructions were followed without panic. Calm announcements helped prevent chaos inside the cabin. Emergency lighting guided movement once the aircraft stopped. Crew members assisted until the final passenger exited safely. Medical checks confirmed only minor, stress-related symptoms. Many passengers described overwhelming relief once outside. Some knelt on the runway, absorbing what had just happened. For them, the ground felt different that day. NASA arranged counseling and debriefings for all involved. Mental health support followed physical safety checks. The human side of survival became a priority. Engineers continued simulations late into the night. Virtual models tested alternate outcomes under different conditions. Small changes revealed how close margins can be. One wrong angle could have changed everything. This reinforced respect for pilot precision. Training academies requested permission to use the footage. The landing became a teaching tool worldwide. Students studied body position, speed, and descent rate. Each frame offered lessons written in sparks and smoke. Veteran pilots called it a master class in emergency control. The crew declined praise, crediting teamwork instead. They emphasized that preparation removed fear from the equation. Media interviews focused on discipline, not heroics. This reframing shaped public understanding of aviation safety. Slowly, the story shifted from accident to achievement. The damaged aircraft remained grounded, awaiting final reports. Its future would depend on structural assessments. Some speculated it might never fly again. Others argued it deserved restoration as a training artifact. Discussions extended beyond engineering into philosophy. How humans respond under pressure became a central theme. Psychologists analyzed decision-making during high-stress moments. The pilot's steady tone became a reference example. Silence, pauses, and clarity all played roles. Even breathing patterns were discussed by experts. This event showed how small habits shape big outcomes. Routine drills suddenly felt far more important. Aviation schools reported renewed student focus. Instructors revisited emergency scenarios with new urgency. The landing redefined respect for unseen preparation. Viewers realized safety is built long before emergencies occur. The runway scars were eventually repaired and repainted. Yet for staff, the memory remained vivid. Some workers said they still hear the sound, a scraping roar that marked a defining moment. The story entered aviation history quietly but firmly. It joined other rare cases studied for decades, not as a failure, but as a controlled response. The difference mattered deeply to professionals. This was not chaos, but managed risk. As weeks passed, public attention slowly faded, but lessons from the landing stayed active. Reports were finalized and distributed globally. Recommendations updated inspection and maintenance protocols. Redundancy checks received renewed emphasis. Technology advanced, informed by real-world evidence. Every update traced back to that runway. The incident became a reference point in safety manuals, a moment frozen in time, yet always moving forward. It showed how preparation transforms danger, and how systems succeed when people trust them. The pilots returned to duty after clearance. Their first flights carried quiet significance, confidence rebuilt through professionalism. The experience reshaped how they viewed routine landings. Every touchdown carried new awareness. They knew firsthand what training can prevent. This story lives on beyond viral clips. It exists in classrooms, manuals, and minds. A reminder written in steel and smoke that survival often begins long before impact. As months passed, the landing became less of a headline and more of a reference point. Aviation conferences replayed the footage during discussions on emergency preparedness. Engineers paused the video frame by frame, analyzing stress points along the fuselage. Each scrape mark revealed how energy transferred safely through the aircraft body. Designers noted how crumple zones behaved exactly as simulations predicted. This validation strengthened confidence in modern aircraft engineering principles. The landing gear system remained under intense scrutiny by multiple agencies. Investigators traced the failure to a rare combination of mechanical conditions, individually harmless. Together, they created a critical malfunction. This discovery reshaped how layered failures are evaluated. New inspection routines were drafted to catch similar patterns earlier. Maintenance crews received updated training materials worldwide. The incident quietly improved safety across fleets. Few passengers realized how often lessons come from rare events. For professionals, these moments drive even. Meanwhile, online creators continued sharing the dramatic clip. Some focused on visuals, others on technical explanations. A few exaggerated the danger, drawing criticism from experts. Professionals emphasized accuracy over shock value. They reminded viewers that fear distorts understanding. Balanced storytelling became a goal for responsible coverage. The NASA landing offered a chance to educate, not frighten. Documentaries began forming around the event. Scripts focused on preparation rather than panic. Narrators highlighted human discipline under pressure. The story shifted toward resilience and design. Pilots worldwide watched with professional curiosity. Many imagined themselves in the same position. Training suddenly felt personal, not theoretical. Simulators incorporated similar scenarios into sessions. Students practiced maintaining alignment, without landing gear. Instructors emphasized patience and controlled descent. Every session referenced the Texas Runway incident. Over time, muscle memory replaced anxiety. Confidence grew from repetition and understanding. Outside aviation, viewers reflected on trust in machines, systems, and trained professionals. The event subtly reinforced public faith in flight. Fear gave way to respect for complexity. Survivors occasionally reunited for private gatherings. They shared perspectives from inside the cabin. Some admitted they sensed danger before announcements. Others felt calm without knowing why. The human brain reads cues even in silence. Psychologists found this aspect fascinating. Calm environments reduce panic, even during crisis. Crew tone influenced passenger reactions dramatically. This reinforced communication training importance. Small details shaped the entire experience. NASA archived the event in internal records. It joined decades of lessons learned, each incident layered onto the last. Progress rarely comes from perfection alone. It comes from response to imperfection. The damaged aircraft remained a topic of debate. Repair costs were weighed against research value. Some argued it should remain untouched. Others wanted it flying again as proof of recovery. Decisions moved slowly, guided by data. Regardless, its legacy was already secured. The landing entered aviation storytelling culture, not as legend but as example. In classrooms, students leaned forward when it played. The sparks still commanded attention, but the lessons carried more weight. The story encouraged respect for routine checks. For checklists read carefully, not rushed. For communication spoken clearly, not emotionally. These habits separate chaos from control. Experts noted how boredom can breed complacency. This incident countered that mindset sharply. Every flight deserves full attention. Every landing carries responsibility. The Texas Runway incident reinforced that truth. Media eventually moved on to newer stories. But within aviation, the landing stayed relevant. It lived quietly in training halls and manuals. New pilots learned it without knowing headlines. They absorbed it as standard knowledge. That is how safety culture works. Loud moments create silent improvements. Improvements protect people who never notice. The landing saved lives beyond those on board. Its ripple effects extended far outward. Each update traced back to that single event, a reminder that survival is often shared. One crew's discipline benefits countless others. The story deepened appreciation for unseen effort, for work done long before emergencies arise. In that sense, the landing never truly ended. It continued in procedures, training, and design. It became part of aviation's collective memory. A memory built on calm choices, on steady hands, and clear thinking. The sparks faded, but meaning remained. Safety advanced quietly because of that day, and preparation once again proved its power. This was not luck, but readiness. A lesson written without words, one that aviation will never forget. Long after the incident, aviation analysts continued referencing the landing during safety briefings. The footage became a benchmark example of how controlled decision-making prevents cascading failure. Engineers emphasized that no single system saved the aircraft, but a network of redundancies working. This layered protection model demonstrated why aviation tolerates faults without immediate catastrophe. Investigations confirmed the failure was rare, yet not impossible within complex mechanical systems. That realization pushed agencies to rethink how unlikely combinations are evaluated during inspections. Maintenance schedules were updated to reflect interaction between systems, not isolated components. The landing reshaped how engineers visualize stress during abnormal touchdown scenarios. Heat maps from the fuselage showed energy dispersal exactly where designers intended. These findings validated decades of research, often unseen by the public. Aviation magazines published deep technical breakdowns of the incident months later. Diagrams illustrated how friction slowed the aircraft without compromising structural integrity. Pilots reading those reports gained renewed confidence in aircraft design philosophy. Confidence, however, was paired with humility toward unpredictable variables. Training programs added emphasis on adaptability rather than rigid expectation. The crew's calm demeanor became a recurring reference in human factor studies. Experts noted how emotional regulation influenced mechanical outcomes. Stress management was no longer seen as secondary to technical skill. Flight schools introduced mindfulness techniques alongside simulator training. These changes traced back quietly to the Texas Runway event. Public interest faded, but institutional memory preserved every detail. Airlines requested summaries to incorporate lessons into internal safety culture. Safety bulletins translated the event into actionable guidance. Every line of text represented real consequences avoided. The runway itself became a point of curiosity for aviation enthusiasts. Visitors often stood where sparks first appeared, imagining the sound and heat. Airport staff shared stories of that day with new employees. These stories carried caution, not drama. They reminded listeners that emergencies rarely announce themselves loudly. Preparation fills the silence before crisis arrives. The aircraft manufacturer reviewed similar models worldwide. Inspections revealed no widespread defects, reinforcing confidence. Still, minor design improvements were recommended. Progress often comes from refinement, not reinvention. The pilots remained grounded figures throughout interviews. They avoided sensational language, focusing instead on procedure. This approach shaped responsible storytelling across platforms. Content creators who followed this tone gained credibility. Audiences responded positively to explanation over exaggeration. Trust grew between experts and the public. The landing became less about fear and more about understanding. Understanding replaced speculation in serious discussions. Aviation forums matured around the topic. Newcomers learned to value evidence over emotion. The incident subtly elevated online discourse quality. Professionals engaged more actively with curious viewers. Education replaced mystery. Meanwhile, emergency responders used the event to refine drills. Foam deployment strategies were slightly adjusted. Response timing targets were tightened by seconds. These changes improved readiness for future incidents. Every adjustment traced back to lessons learned. The cabin crew received recognition for calm leadership. Their role proved essential in preventing panic. Training manuals highlighted communication clarity. Tone, pacing, and word choice were analyzed closely. Small details carried enormous weight. Survivors later reflected on how safe they felt despite danger. That perception mattered as much as physical outcome. Aviation psychology studies cited the event frequently. Calm environments influence survival behavior. Designers considered cabin lighting and sound more carefully. Emergency cues were refined based on feedback. Safety evolved through empathy as well as engineering. The landing's legacy extended into unexpected domains. It influenced how risk is communicated publicly. Authorities learned transparency builds confidence. Honest explanations reduced misinformation spread. This strengthened institutional credibility. Over time, the story settled into quiet significance. It was no longer viral, but vital. Students encountered it without knowing its online history. They absorbed its lessons as standard practice. That normalization marked true success. The event stopped being exceptional and became instructive. Aviation safety thrives on such transitions. Loud incidents create silent safeguards. Those safeguards protect people who'd never notice. The Texas Runway became one of many teaching points, yet its clarity made it unforgettable. The landing proved preparation defeats panic. It showed how discipline turns danger into data. Data then becomes protection for the future. This cycle defines aviation progress. The story lives on quietly in procedures, in briefings, manuals, and simulations. Its influence spreads invisibly through each flight. Every smooth landing owes something to lessons learned, even when passengers never know. That is the hidden success of safety. The event reshaped respect for routine work. 4 checks, done daily, without applause. 4 drills repeated until boring. Boredom, it turns out, saves lives. The landing reinforced that truth clearly. Calm replaced chaos because systems worked. People trusted those systems. Training met reality without hesitation. This is how survival looks in practice. Not dramatic, but deliberate. BTS-TASI, the landing was no longer treated as an accident, but as a controlled survival case. Aviation instructors framed the event as proof that preparation quietly outweighs dramatic heroics. Every second of cockpit audio demonstrated discipline shaped by thousands of training repetitions. Analysts noted how the pilots avoided rushed movements, despite the visible danger beneath them. That restraint prevented overcorrection, which often causes more damage than the original failure. Flight manuals referenced the event while discussing abnormal landing energy management techniques. Engineers emphasized how friction was distributed evenly across reinforced structural contact zones. The aircraft's underside absorbed heat and stress without breaching the pressurized cabin. This outcome validated safety margins calculated years before the aircraft ever flew. Redundancy planning proved essential, even when the primary system completely failed. Safety boards highlighted how layered defenses by time during critical decision windows. Time, in emergencies, often determines whether survival remains possible. The crew used that time effectively, converting uncertainty into structured action. Cabin crew training proved equally critical once the aircraft came to rest. Clear instructions prevented confusion as smoke drifted outside emergency exits. Passengers later described how calm voices shaped their emotional response. Fear was present, but it never became uncontrollable. That difference changed everything. Researchers studying crisis behavior cited the event in multiple publications. They observed how humans mirror authority figures during high-stress situations. Calm leadership reduces panic faster than physical restraints ever could. This insight influenced how emergency communication scripts were words, tone, and pacing became design considerations, not afterthoughts. The event also reshaped how media outlets approached aviation incidents. Responsible reporting replaced speculation in several long-form documentaries. Viewers responded better to explanation than sensational imagery. Trust increased when complexity was respected instead of simplified. The Texas runway landing became a case study in ethical storytelling. It showed that danger can be discussed without glorification. Over time, the story matured into educational material. Universities integrated it into aerospace engineering coursework. Students analyzed structural deformation using real-world data. The aircraft served as an unplanned but invaluable experiment. Results influenced future material selection and reinforcement layouts. Even minor design updates traced their logic back to this incident. Safety evolution rarely announces itself loudly. It moves quietly, hidden inside procedures and calculations. The public never sees most of these changes, yet every passenger benefits from them. The landing also changed how pilots viewed routine flights. Complacency felt heavier after seeing how quickly conditions can shift. Normal operations regained seriousness. Checklists were read more carefully. Assumptions were questioned more often. That cultural shift mattered as much as technical improvements. Aviation safety depends on mindset as much as machinery. The Texas incident reinforced that philosophy clearly. It reminded professionals why repetition matters, why boring training saves lives, why discipline must exist before emergencies appear. The aircraft itself became a symbol of controlled failure. Failure that did not escalate into catastrophe. That distinction defines successful system design. Survivors often describe the landing as unreal in hindsight. Memory blurred moments into fragments of sound and motion. Yet one detail remained consistent across accounts. Everything felt organized, even while sparks filled the windows. Order within chaos prevented psychological collapse. That order was engineered, trained, and practiced. The landing proved that safety is intentional, not accidental. It is built slowly, tested rarely, and relied upon instantly. Each professional involved trusted the system implicitly. That trust justified itself on the runway. The story now lives beyond video clips. It lives inside aviation culture itself. Every smooth landing echoes lessons learned that day. Passengers may never notice that invisibility is the ultimate success. Safety working exactly as intended often looks uneventful. Even when sparks once lit the ground, the Texas runway returned to silence after repairs. But its lesson continues, flying worldwide. Quietly embedded inside every procedure, reinforced through every training session. This is how progress survives memory loss. It becomes routine, and routine keeps people alive. That is the real ending of this story. Not applause, but continuation. Flight after flight.
In professional aviation circles, the landing became a quiet reminder of how preparation defeats instinct. Instinct alone might urge speed or improvisation, but training teaches patience under pressure. The pilots trusted procedure over emotion, even as visual cues suggested immediate danger. That trust prevented rushed inputs that could have destabilized the aircraft during touchdown. Engineers later confirmed that even small overcorrections might have caused structural failure. The margin between control and catastrophe was narrow, yet deliberately respected. Respect for limits is a core principle drilled into pilots from their earliest lessons. This incident showed how deeply that discipline had been internalized. Flight data revealed smooth control inputs right up to full stop. No abrupt pitch changes, no unnecessary corrections, only steady alignment. Such restraint is difficult when adrenaline surges through the human body. Training exists specifically to override that biological response. Aviation psychology experts pointed to this moment as a textbook example. They explained how repetition builds reliable behavior during stress. The landing offered visible proof of invisible mental conditioning. Outside the cockpit, ground crews demonstrated similar discipline. Firefighters waited for exact cues before advancing, avoiding premature exposure. Their timing minimized risk while maximizing suppression effectiveness. Coordination between air and ground teams unfolded almost seamlessly. This synchronization reflected months of joint emergency drills. Drills often feel repetitive, but repetition removes hesitation. Hesitation, during emergencies, costs time. Time, in this case, meant the difference between containment and escalation. Foam coverage began precisely where friction heat was highest. This prevented ignition from spreading along the aircraft underside. Engineers later praised this decision as quietly decisive. The public saw flames, but professionals saw controlled variables. Control defines the difference between incident and disaster. Investigators emphasized that nothing about the landing was random. Each outcome traced back to deliberate preparation. That realization reshaped how the story was taught, not as luck, but as consequence. It's a consequence of planning, discipline, and design philosophy. Aviation thrives on accepting that failure will eventually occur. Systems are therefore built to fail safely, not perfectly. The belly landing illustrated this principle with striking clarity. Failure occurred, yet safety remained intact. This distinction sits at the heart of modern engineering. Students studying aerospace design returned to this example repeatedly. It offered rare, real-world validation of theoretical models. The aircraft absorbed forces exactly where simulations predicted. Data matched expectations, strengthening confidence in predictive tools. Confidence, however, did not breed complacency. Engineers still searched for improvement opportunities. Minor adjustments can yield major safety gains. That mindset defines long-term aviation progress. The incident also influenced how emergency checklists were structured. Clarity and sequence received renewed emphasis. Steps were reordered to reduce cognitive load under stress. Simpler instructions improve execution reliability. This insight extended beyond aviation into other high-risk fields. Medicine, engineering, and disaster response adopted similar principles. The landing's influence quietly crossed industry boundaries. Its reach extended far beyond the runway. Survivors often described a strange calm after evacuation. Adrenaline faded, replaced by delayed realization. That realization carried gratitude rather than fear. Gratitude toward systems that worked as intended, toward people who trained without knowing this moment would come. The event highlighted the value of unseen effort. Effort invested long before applause or headlines. Aviation safety depends on people who accept anonymity. Their success is measured by uneventful outcomes. This landing briefly made that hidden work visible, and it faded again into routine. Routine is where safety lives. Every checklist read carefully continues this legacy. Every drill completed without drama reinforces it. The Texas runway moment became part of that routine. It no longer shocks professionals. Instead, it informs them. In this way, the story remains alive. Alive in habits, not headlines. The aircraft may never fly again, yet its purpose continues through safer flights worldwide. Impact is not measured by movement alone. Sometimes impact reshapes systems. This landing reshaped many. Quietly, thoroughly, and permanently. Exactly how safety prefers to work.
As time passed, the landing became woven into standard aviation safety narratives worldwide. It was no longer referenced as a rare anomaly. but as a predictable outcome of preparation. Safety briefings use the event to illustrate how humans and machines cooperate under stress. Cooperation, not automation alone, to find a successful resolution of the emergency. Pilots often remarked that the aircraft behaved exactly as expected during the slide. Predictability during failure reduces fear and improves decision-making. Designers aim for systems that communicate clearly when something goes wrong. In this case, warnings arrived early enough to allow a thoughtful response. That window of time proved invaluable. Investigators emphasized how early detection prevented rushed landing attempts. The decision to circle the airport reduced fuel load and fire risk. This choice demonstrated strategic thinking beyond immediate problem solving. Strategic thinking under pressure separates experience from impulse. Flight instructors highlighted this during advanced training sessions. Students were reminded that slowing down can be the fastest path to safety. The runway itself was chosen deliberately for length and surface condition. Small environmental factors played meaningful roles in the outcome. Weather stability removed variables that could have complicated control. Every favorable condition was recognized and used effectively. This showed how situational awareness extends beyond cockpit instruments. Ground personnel also adapted in real time. Fire crews adjusted vehicle spacing to anticipate the slide path. This anticipation prevented secondary hazards during suppression. Such foresight only comes from repeated scenario training. Training transforms uncertainty into expectation. Expectation reduces reaction delay. Reaction delay is often the silent enemy in emergencies. The landing demonstrated how anticipation neutralizes that enemy. Aviation psychologists later discussed this case extensively. They noted how confidence was rooted in familiarity, not bravado. Familiarity came from drills practiced long before necessity arose. This principle echoed across multiple safety-critical professions. Firefighters, surgeons, and engineers all recognize the pattern. Repetition builds reliability when stakes are highest. The story gradually found its place in safety culture. It became a reference without needing explanation. New professionals learned it as foundational knowledge. Veterans saw it as confirmation of long-held beliefs. That alignment strengthened collective discipline. Discipline is the quiet backbone of aviation safety. Media attention eventually faded completely. What remained was documentation and institutional memory. Reports were archived, yet lessons stayed active. Procedures updated after the landing never reverted. Each revision carried traces of that day. This is how progress accumulates invisibly. The public may never connect cause and effect, but professionals understand the lineage clearly. One incident influences countless future decisions. That influence multiplies silently. Pilots landing smoothly years later unknowingly benefit. Passengers step off aircraft without realizing why it feels routine. Routine is engineered, not accidental. The Texas runway incident reinforced that truth decisively. It also challenged myths surrounding heroism. No dramatic last-second maneuver saved the plane. Instead, restraint preserved control. That lesson resonated deeply across the industry. Calm decision-making outperformed dramatic action. This narrative shift mattered culturally. It reshaped how success is defined in emergencies. Success became prevention, not spectacle. The aircraft's scars told a story without exaggeration. Each mark represented energy managed safely. Engineers sometimes study those marks directly. Physical evidence often speaks louder than theory. The underside damage confirmed analytical predictions. Validation strengthened trust in modeling techniques. Trust enables innovation without innovation then feeds back into safety. This cycle continues quietly. The landing now exists mostly in footnotes and training slides, yet its impact remains active every day. Every smooth arrival echoes its lessons. Even when skies are calm and routines feel mundane. Mundane moments are when safety proves itself. The absence of drama is success. That is aviation's ultimate achievement. The Texas landing clarified that philosophy and embedded it permanently into practice. The Texas runway landing continued to shape aviation training months and years later. Its lessons extended far beyond the immediate incident, quietly influencing multiple teams. Pilots practiced simulations replicating every nuance of the slide and friction dynamics. These sessions emphasized patience, precision, and strict adherence to procedure. Fire crews incorporated the landing into their response drills, improving coordination. Each second of foam deployment was planned according to observed heat and friction. Ground personnel learned to anticipate aircraft movement under extreme stress scenarios. Coordination between air and ground teams became an example in emergency management manuals. Aviation psychology research highlighted how calm authority affects passenger behavior. Passengers mirror the composure of crew members during high-stress emergencies. Controlled instruction reduced panic, demonstrating the value of clear communication. Post-incident evaluations emphasized mental preparation as much as mechanical training. Decision-making under pressure relied on rehearsed cognitive patterns. Cognitive rehearsal, repetition, and muscle memory proved critical for effective response. Students studying aerospace design examined fuselage deformation patterns in detail. These patterns confirmed that structural reinforcements functioned exactly as intended. Material stress distribution matched simulation predictions almost perfectly. Engineers refined design assumptions using data gathered from the real event. Layered redundancy prevented the malfunction from escalating into catastrophic failure. Safety protocols were updated to reflect interactions between systems rather than isolated checks. This proactive approach further minimized the likelihood of similar future incidents. The public rarely appreciates the depth of preparation that makes routine flights safe. Every controlled landing owes its security to unseen effort and meticulous planning. Safety culture relies on repeated drills that often appear mundane but are life-saving. Emergency procedures evolve continuously, informed by rare but instructive events. The pilots demonstrated the power of calm, precise control when faced with unexpected adversity. Their choices exemplified professionalism under extreme pressure. Training scenarios now include psychological and physiological stress factors. This ensures preparedness not only for mechanics, but for human responses. Every line of communication between cockpit and tower followed established protocols. Protocol adherence prevented confusion and minimized risk throughout the landing. Observers noted how even minor adjustments in alignment contributed to overall success. Speed, angle, and pitch were all managed intentionally to maintain control during the slide. Fire suppression was equally precise, anticipating heat sources along the aircraft belly. Timing and positioning of foam deployment were critical in preventing fire escalation. Coordination among all teams ensured that each action complemented the next. Post-incident analyses confirmed that no single person or system bore sole responsibility. Success resulted from interdependent preparation and teamwork executed flawlessly. Lessons learned extended into broader aviation safety protocols and training methods. Research into stress management emphasized calm, deliberate responses over reactive measures. Cabin crew training highlighted communication strategies that minimize passenger panic. Aviation psychology emphasized the interaction between crew demeanor and passenger trust. Mental conditioning proved as important as technical skill in preventing error escalation. Engineers validated material performance under extreme but controlled stress conditions. Flight simulations now incorporate similar mechanical and human factors into exercises. Students and trainees observed the landing to understand the importance of precision. Every step was planned, rehearsed, and executed within strict safety margins. The landing reinforced that risk is mitigated not by luck, but by disciplined preparation. Pilots returning to service applied lessons learned, enhancing safety on subsequent flights. Maintenance personnel implemented updated inspection schedules informed by the incident. Procedures emphasize system interactions and potential cascading failures. Even minor errors can propagate if redundancy checks are ignored. The Texas runway incident showed how anticipation prevents escalation during emergencies. Professional discourse shifted toward calm execution and preparation rather than dramatic responses. Media coverage highlighted facts over speculation, promoting educational value. Responsible storytelling emphasized process over spectacle to inform rather than alarm viewers. The landing became a benchmark case for coordinated emergency response worldwide. Institutions adopted it as an example in manuals, curricula, and safety briefings. New professionals internalized the story as part of standard operational knowledge. Veteran crews saw it as a confirmation of established best practices. The incident strengthened the culture of safety emphasizing teamwork and preparation. Silent improvements derived from this event protected countless subsequent flights. Smooth landings now reflect the accumulation of lessons learned in moments like this. The absence of drama demonstrates the effectiveness of rigorous systems and training. The aircraft's scars provide tangible evidence of controlled energy management. Material deformation confirms the precision of design and predictive simulations. Every minor adjustment during the landing contributed to overall survival outcomes. Flight safety results from both engineering excellence and disciplined human action. The Texas landing teaches that preparation is the true hero behind successful outcomes. Risk management relies on anticipation, repeated drills, and accurate decision-making. Mental preparedness ensures that stress does not compromise technical execution. Crew coordination transforms uncertainty into controlled, predictable outcomes. Fire suppression, communication, and piloting acted together to prevent disaster. Observed behaviors reinforce principles applied in high-stress training exercises. Aviation culture integrates these lessons to build long-term safety resilience. Safety evolves quietly through continuous observation, analysis, and refinement. Training becomes ingrained, so responses become automatic under pressure. This landing exemplifies the interplay of design, preparation, and human judgment. Its legacy persists in procedures, manuals, and the mindset of every pilot today. The Texas runway incident demonstrates how deliberate preparation triumphs over chaos in aviation.